I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like there's just not enough characters in Warhammer 3. Now sure, we might have all of these races and factions, but there could really be so much more. Well, the Legendary Characters mod adds over 100 new Legendary Lords and Heroes to the game to spice things up. 28 of these even have their own factions, so today let's take a look at each one and what you can expect if you want to give them a try. As I said, there are 28 new campaigns added with this mod, and we're going to take a look at each one. First up, from the Beastmen, we have the Red Khorne tribe, and they are led by Ragush of the Bloody Khorne. These are the Minotaur specialists of the Beastmen, taking the already powerful units and bolstering them with the ability to cause terror alongside Vanguard deployment. This makes them even more devastating on the battlefield, demolishing enemy morale with unexpected flanks. To help recruit and keep them, they also benefit from increased dread gain for the faction leader and faster replenishment faction-wide. These are technically listed under Lord effects, but really they're just more faction-wide bonuses. The Minotaur focus continues, allowing them to increase their capacity for a reduced amount of dread, alongside starting with more right out the gate. And their starting location is just outside of Wurtbad. For the Chaos Dwarves, we have the Overlords of Zarduk, led by Rykarth the Unbreakable. Rykarth is somewhat of an arms dealer for the forces of Chaos and gains increased relations alongside increased capacity for the Hell Cannons he reserves for himself. Alongside this, he can utilize more Iron Sworn right out the gate and grants them Death Blow, giving them a massive boost to damage once they reach low health. His army brings buffs to Hell Cannons, increasing their ammo to keep them firing for longer, alongside forcing his troops to fight harder for longer before daring to retreat. And his faction starts in the Gates of Zar. Kicking off the Dark Elves, we have the Bleak Hold, led by Shakara Riel. She's another Dark Elf pirate lord, and as such is in direct competition with Lokir and Rakarth, causing some friction between their factions. Karon Ka, however, are all too happy to work together, provided they trade spoils back and forth. She's also a specialist of utilizing the lower end of the Dark Elf roster, providing buffs for Harpies and Dark Riders, but paying much more upkeep for the higher end infantry and cavalry troops. As a pirate lord, her army is immune to all sea-based attrition and captures more casualties post-battle to put straight to work in her settlements. Lastly, her wit makes her army much more likely to pull off ambushes, so don't be afraid to line waits for your enemies to catch them unawares. Her faction starts in Arnheim with control of the Forests of Arnheim and the Moonshard. The Bloodhall Coven are led by Lilieth. Lilieth is pretty much the Dark Elf answer for Ilariel, and not only because she also has her dogs out. As she invades more of Ulthuan, her faction gains bonuses similar to how Ilariel gains them when it's under High Elf control. Well, she should, but I can't find them anywhere, so if you know what they are talking about, please let me know in the comments. Alongside this, she's an expert at capturing slaves and milking them for all the money they can produce. She also makes the most of all mine and quarry buildings and puts those materials to use on sorcery buildings to flood the faction with casters. Lastly, her armies gain the Dispatch the Pitiful ability, which provides massive offensive buffs in a huge area based on how many low leadership enemies are nearby. Her own army gains bonuses to replenishment, leadership and missile damage whenever they're in foreign territory, which will come in useful for her conquest of Ulthuan. She starts outside of Elysia, but has control of the Bloodhall and Pillars of the Unseen Constellations in Lustria. And lastly, for the Dark Elves, we have Karon Ka, led by Hag Queen Melida. Melida is a fairly simple naval lord, allowing her faster growth for Black Arcs, alongside increased slave income. Her faction gains an increased capacity for Death Hags, and her own army buffs them and Witch Elves charge bonus and weapon strength, making them much deadlier in battle. She starts in Karon Ka, but in control of almost 2 entire provinces. Next up, the Dwarves. First up, we have Barak Var, led by Bernorth Grundadrak. He's something of a naval lord for the Dwarves, granting his faction increased port income and immunity to ocean-based attrition. As well as this, he has an increased capacity for Master Engineers and provides them with advanced training before recruitment. Engineers in his own army pay reduced upkeep, and all units gain more leadership and attack when fighting at sea, helping them cross the Gulf to the Badlands no problem. His faction starts in Barak Var with control of Varenka Hills. Karakern is led by Alrik Ranulfsson. His faction is steeped in elite tradition, and as such he has much more powerful and plentiful Thanes and cheap Longbeards, but much more expensive technology-based units like Copters and Black Powder troops. His army also handpicks the most elite of all Longbeards when recruiting, and provides all melee infantry with enhanced damage in combat. His faction starts in Karakern with control of Migdal Vongel Barak. Karak Norn is led by Brock Ironpick. As a total opposite to Alrik, Brock totally embraces advanced technology and uses it for much cheaper in his armies, alongside utilizing it for much faster construction. He even puts it to work on his supply lines, allowing him reduced global recruitment duration. He pushes fire-based units in his army to the maximum reaches of their power with increased damage and range, meaning all shall burn, which find themselves a target of his ire. The faction starts in Karak Norn with control of Grimhold. Karak Ziflin are led by Rorik Granithand. Rorek is an expert mine foreman, allowing his faction to earn a massive amount of income from all the mine and quarry-based resource deposits and put that to work much more efficiently when building. He's also able to make use of ironbreakers much cheaper to protect his mining empire. Those ironbreakers, alongside miners, are provided with advanced training before joining his army, granting them increased damage and resistance on the battlefield. And the faction stars in Karak Ziflin. Lastly, Sven's expedition, led by Sven Hasselfrazian. As an exile from the clans, he suffers reduced relations with other dwarves, but with that independence comes faster research and replenishment, allowing his faction very fast technological and tactical progress in the campaign. He also has a close relationship with Marienburg, giving him at least one friend in the old world. His army moves much faster on the campaign map, alongside earning increased income post-battle and paying less upkeep for warriors and artillery. His faction starts in the Mine of the Bearded Skulls, with control of Thrice Cursed Peak. But if you instead want to control the peak of game deals, you should check out Instant Gaming. Now I get it, January's here, and it sucks. It's cold, you're still hungover and full from Christmas, and you're counting down the 16 weeks until that January payday. Amidst all that, it can be hard to find the change to treat yourself, but that's where Instant Gaming comes in. They have pretty much any game you could dream for at lower prices than you can find them anywhere else. So if you want to escape the void of January to the Mojave Wasteland, then you can pick up Fallout New Vegas for 77% off. Or if you instead want to fantasize about that beach vacation that's still 60 months away, then why not Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth for 57% off. No matter what you're in the mood for, they have you covered, whether you're playing your games on any of the PC launchers or even a console. And I know these sites always seem super shady, but they have over 700,000 reviews on Trustpilot and over 4.5 stars, so you know you're in good hands. Plus, alongside supporting the channel, anyone who uses my link can enter monthly giveaways for anything you want store-wide. By the way, keep an eye on your email if you do buy anything to make sure you claim something. Don't want to miss out on all the free stuff. Anyway, if all of that sounds like something you'd be interested in, then head on down to the link in the description and get yourself some games. A huge thanks to Instant Gaming and everyone who's used my link so far. You guys are the best. Now, back to the video. For the Greenskins, we have the Scabby Eye, led by Nobbert Fangadoom. He's something of a Night Goblin specialist, allowing him to use their shamans right out the gate, grants all Goblin units increased leadership, and reduce the recruitment cost of Spider Riders alongside increasing their attack. All of his great Goblin shamans also gain magical attacks and spell mastery for increased magical power. He's a very powerful caster, being able to make use of the Little War for a reduced cost, and has the ability to deal damage to himself in exchange for heavy cooldown reduction. All goblins in his army also gain some spell resistance to ward off enemy caster damage. His War is also unique in the sense it has a powerful initial stage, granting him some more recharge and cooldown reduction, alongside his army gaining massive offensive buffs and spell resistance, followed by huge speed and defense debuffs. It is a strong one for sure, but you'll need to pick your moments carefully so you don't get burned by the second phase. And his faction starts in Dok Karaz with control of Barag de Wazbag. Next up we have Khorne, and we have Scaramore, led by Scar Bloodwrath. He's a fairly standard Khorne Lord, gaining more movement range after winning a battle for those great multi-battle turns. He can also make use of Wrathmonger and Skull Reap units for much cheaper, so you can have all the shirtless men you want to help you stack the Skull Throne as tall as possible. He spreads the touch of Khorne wherever he goes, and is an expert at extracting as many skulls as he can from his enemies. Lastly, he increases the charging power of everything in his army, so consider taking something big to make the most of it. His faction starts in the Never-Ending Chasm with control of Mount Athul. We also have the Slaughtermen, led by Abrax the Bloody. Aside from sounding like an off-brand dish soap, his faction is one of the best for farming skulls en masse no matter what army you're using. All his armies also gain access to some powerful abilities to massively increase their offensive potential. His own army collects even more skulls than the rest, both from battles and skull piles strewn around the map. He spreads a touch of Khorne wherever he goes, and can rampage with the best of them with that movement bonus following a battle victory. His faction starts in Infernius, but he owns the rest of the Northern Wastes province. And lastly, the Bloodkeepers, led by Kharn the Vanquisher. He's something of a demon lord in the Khorne ranks, allowing him much faster replenishments for all demon units, alongside a high capacity for Blood Reaper heroes. However, he does pay much high upkeep for mortals, so they may be better spent as skulls for the throne. Of course, he's spreading Khorne's influence wherever he goes and can farm skulls with the best of them. Bloodletters and Crushers in his army also see a nice bonus to charge, making his demonic cavalry extremely devastating when used correctly. His faction starts in the Gateway to Koresh. For the Lizardman, we have Zlatan, led by Zlatgar. Zlatgar is something of a stealth Saurus specialist, not only increasing the speed of all Saurus in his faction, but also his army's prowess at ambushes, both attacking and defending. Add on the slowing of enemies in his territory and his desert attack bonus, and he's ready to take the fight to his enemies or line wait for them to come to him just as easily. Saurus in his army gains Stalk to sneak up on enemies when they least expect it. All units in his speedy army also gain immunity to Sandstorm attrition, alongside the benefits of his Ambusher of the Dunes ability. And of course, the faction stars in Zlatan. For Nurgle, we have the Magoth-kin, led by Valnir the Reaper. Valnir is a bit of a melee infantry specialist, allowing him to get elite frontlines healthy and fighting in no time. His faster cycle time for elite recruitment will allow him to stock his armies with everything he needs to spread the love of Papa, and the faction's leadership draining will ensure no one can stand up to him for long. His army saps the leadership of enemy armies even further, and spreads plagues at a rapid rate, so all can feel the love of Papa. His faction starts in Stjórntrakan with control of the lair of the Troll King. For the Ogre Kingdoms, we have Sharktooth, led by Tarog Whalebeater. This is the Ocean Dominance faction of the Ogre Kingdoms. They gain a huge number of bonuses when at sea to their movement range, leadership, bonus versus large, immunity to attrition, and faster travel through sea lanes. Targog's army is more of the same, with even more movement range alongside increased meat from battles and growth after victories, allowing him to quickly create a port in any storm. He starts next to Port Reaver with a nearby camp. We also have the Tree Hammers, led by Vazgrat the Lucky. Vazgrat might take the throne of best diplomatic ogre, as he not only has improved relations with other ogres and faster allegiance point gain, he also gains a slight relations improvement with everyone, increased trade income, and better bounty rewards. His close relations with other clans also allow him to recruit man-eaters and crushers for half the cost, and he inspires his ranged troops to stand their ground and fire as fast as possible. His own army has a little bit of everything: more movement, meat, replenishment, ambush defense, mass, and post-battle loot. Not really a master of anything, but that sure is a lot of trades to be a jack of. He starts next to the Griffin Wood with a nearby camp. For Slaanesh, we have the Winter Palace Pretenders, led by Natasha Raskolnikov. Her near obsession with the Kislev Sardom not only allows her to make use of and buff some of their units, her armies also appear if a Kislev settlement is sacked or razed to exact a swift revenge. If she sacks a city herself, she can choose to gift it to a minor Kislevite faction to improve their relationship. Of course, she has improved relations with the various human factions, in particular Kislev, and will no doubt spend her devotees to coerce them to her side even further, hopefully making some very powerful alliances. Her army will also spread the influence of Slaanesh wherever she goes to solidify her bond with all she comes into contact with, and her faction starts in the Monolith of Bubonicus. We also have the Rapturous Excess, led by Selarai, the Golden Lord of Paramountcy. The faction has the standard improved relations with humans, but even more improvement, making their charms near impossible to resist. He can establish cults using heroes for a much reduced cost, and put those savings towards more seduction to turn the tide on enemies in no time. All of his provinces ooze Slaaneshi corruption and spread it to those nearby in preparation for his arrival. Lastly, all of his Slaaneshi demons gain replenishment based on the amount of breaking enemies nearby, so use flank as well to keep your armies healthy at all times. Of course, the Slaanesh corruption is coming thick and fast alongside attrition for all enemy armies in the same province. Lastly, all lords and heroes battling alongside him gain chunky buffs to attack and damage, making him work great with a hero-heavy composition. And his faction starts in Occam's Forever Maze. For Tzeentch, we have the Apostles of Change, led by Amon Shakai. He's the demonic specialist of Tzeentch, granting all demon units improved barrier HP and all units a shorter replenishment delay, making his armies extremely hard to even touch. He also pays half upkeep for Lords of Change, allowing him a large number of powerful casting monsters at a low cost. Aside from his personal massive cooldown and cost reduction for the lore of Tzeentch, he spreads Tzeentch's corruption wherever he goes and reduces the control of any enemy province he visits. And his faction starts in Kitax with control of Shaqua. For the Vampire Coast, we have the Darkness Daughters, led by Infantra Leonora Nevere. As a Necrofex herself, Infanta can make use of them for a reduced cost and recruit them into her armies much faster. Alongside this, her faction is immune to sea-based attrition and is pretty hated by all the Southern Realms factions. Whenever she's at sea, she gains regeneration, and she spreads negative control to any enemy province she visits. She can also choose to hunt down and kill legendary ships for various rewards and bonuses. Her faction starts off the coast of Bordelot. Coming to the vampire counts, we have the Sires of Morcaine, led by Vorag Bloodytooth. It says they're gathering resources to build the Strigoi Empire, but I have no idea what this means, so again, let me know in the comments below. Of course, his Strigoi focus allows him to upgrade the Strigoi bloodlines for a heavily reduced cost and grants all Strigoi vampires frenzy. His proximity to the Badlands puts him at direct odds with the Greenskins, and his relentless hunger grants him extra movement range upon winning a battle. And lastly, to ensure he always remains on top, he steals XP from other lords to always be moving forward. His faction starts in Morkheim with full control of the province, for now. We also have Templehof, led by Waldekir Ratep. Hated by both the Empire and the Vampire Counts, and nestled between them both, makes for a fairly tense start to the campaign. Their focus is on ethereal units, allowing them to raise them from the dead more easily, and grant them the barrier and deathblow in combat. The ethereal focus continues with regen and reduced upkeep for them. Alongside this, the army gains extra attack and causes terror when battling against the Empire. And the faction of course starts in Templehof. For the Warriors of Chaos, we have the Plague Fleet of Nurgle, led by Gutrot Spume. As a champion of Nurgle, he can make use of the Plague Cauldron, just like everyone else in the family. As well as this, he can raise Plague Fleets, which are Nurgle Black Arcs, allowing him to recruit Norscan units all over the map. He can also make use of the monster hunts and Norscan monster recruitment. Plus, his faction is immune to all sea-based attrition and can use sea lanes fast travel much faster. His own army spreads Nurgle's love wherever they go and grants Chosen, aspiring Pog champions, and Chaos Knights the Rage ability. His faction starts in the Palace of Ruin. Lastly, we come to the Wood Elves. We have the Bowmen of Orion, led by Prince Orion. He's perhaps the best faction at defending magical forests. Not only does he gain extra forest health for winning battles in the Heartlands, he also has faster growth to reinforce them quicker, extra missile strength for ranged troops, as well as reduced upkeep, and lastly, immunity to desert attrition costs. You know, he lives nearby and might want to visit sometime. Missile troops get even more benefits to missile strength and reload speed when in his army, and if they're stood close to him, then they get even more. And the faction, of course, starts in Orion's camp. And our final faction is Lorelorn, led by Queen Marisith. Similar to Orion, she's pretty great at healing magical forests, but does take a bit more of a scorched earth approach. Alongside this, her faction fights much better in forests, making them nearly impossible to lose. And lastly, all alliances with her elf, lizard, and dwarf based pals generate points much faster to build them up and coordinate in no time. Her army is much faster, both on the campaign map and the battlefield. And her faction, of course, starts in Lorelorn Forest. Now, I don't want to say that this mod goes for quantity over quality because that wouldn't be fair. The factions here are no worse than other factions from the same race. They just don't have any unique mechanics beyond that. For some people, that might be a deal breaker. I quite like a new mechanic a lot more than a new starting location, so a lot of these factions would feel a little bit bland to me. That said, there's a huge number of new starting locations and faction-specific specialities here to spice things up beyond mechanics. Gutrot and his Plague Fleet sounds like a lot of fun, sailing the world as Nurgle. Natasha Roskolik, the Kislev lady, sounds like she'd be a lot of fun LARPing as a Kislev faction when playing as Slaanesh. Whilst not all of the options here have such a unique gimmick, there's plenty of choice, so it's very likely there will be something here for everybody. Plus, each new lord has their own battle playstyle, which I'll get to in the next video, alongside skill trees that all add up to make the experience feel a lot more new. If you go in expecting something like the Chaos Dwarfs DLC, adding a bunch of new mechanics and spicing up the game significantly, you're likely to be disappointed. Instead, expect it to be like Omens of Disappointment, where it's just a basic new faction. I'm kidding, of course, but if you instead go in expecting to be able to start factions of a bunch of new locations and really lean into those lord and faction effects, I think you'll have a lot of fun here. And that's all I have on the new campaigns added with the Legendary Characters mod for Warhammer 3. Let me know what you think of the mod in the comments below. Like, subscribe, get some cheap games with the link below, and if you want more Warhammer 3 videos, then check out this one, all about the Tabletop Capacities mod.